Gruesome murders mimic events in the play which the cast members are rehearsing. They are killed one by one in a mysterious way. While everyone worries about being snuffed out, this is young Kindaichi's moment to shine. At lunchtime, Miyuki's classmates are shocked because she turned down a hot boy in their school. Miyuki is embarrassed when one of them jokes her to have a crush on Hajime Kindaichi. Miyuki Nanase is in the 11th grade at Fudo Private High School. She is her class president and a member of the drama club. Class started a while ago. She wonders where Kindaichi, her childhood friend since kindergarten, is. Out of the blue, he is knocking at the window. He fell asleep on the roof, so he is trying to climb in. The teacher suddenly opens the window widely that gives Kindaichi and Miyuki the jumps. Kindaichi slips and almost falls. Fortunately, the teacher and Miyuki grab his hands in time. Miyuki's skirt is too short. She finds it difficult to hold her skirt as well as Kindaichi. In the teacher lounge, two men teachers can't understand why such a straight student like Miyuki is a friend of an idiot, Kindaichi, whereas the beautiful woman teacher, Miss Ogata, thinks Kindaichi is an interesting kid. The male colleagues heard that Miss Ogata is going to take Kindaichi to the training camp. They warn her to be careful with such a troublemaker. He is not only stupid, but also lazy. Miss Ogata has been keeping her opinion. She doesn't believe that is his true self because Hajime Kindaichi is related to Kosuke Kindaichi, a famous detective. In Japan, every year a national high school drama contest is held. The 9 members of the drama club are on the way to the annual training camp by train. Kindaichi is annoyed at reading the wordy script. He works on the sound effect, so he has to read the script in order to know what's going on in the story. Since 3 people quitted right before the contest, Miyuki begged Kindaichi to come along. Kindaichi says the 3 were crept out as a result of the member's death. Miyuki shouts him down immediately because all of the members are still on edge. Abruptly, a masked man puts his hand on Miyuki's shoulder and tells the name Fuyuko. She screams in fear. It is just a joke of Fuse, a 12th grader, member of the drama club. He invites her to play cards with. Kindaichi doesn't join. He wants to get some sleep. Fuse wonders why Miyuki brings the loser, Kindaichi, along. She doesn't allow Fuse to speak against Kindaichi behind his back. Her voice is so loud that Kindaichi feels offended. While Fuse is trying to impress the girls, Kindaichi reveals Fuse's tricks. Fuse could tell the exact suit and value of any card owing to marks on the card's corner. Believing that such an idiot can't do anything, Fuse asks Kindaichi to entertain them with his magic. Kindaichi gives the cards a good shuffle and lets Fuse pick a card, showing to him then. After Fuse puts the card, Ace of Spades, back on the top of the deck, Kindaichi asks him which card on the top is. Fuse answers the Ace of Spades with confidence. It's a wrong answer. It's a 3 of hearts now that the Ace of Spades is conjured up from Fuse's pocket. From Kindaichi's point of view, magic is about technique, not trick card. He even knows where Fuse bought the fake deck by looking at the case. The price sticker was peeled off by Fuse is still sticky. It hasn't been long since he got this deck of cards. Considering that there's only Tokai department store close to the train station that sells magic tricks at 10:14 a.m., he can tell precisely the time and price because of a receipt from Fuse's pants pocket. Kindaichi did magic tricks so well that Fuse can't know how Kindaichi gave the deck back in the zipper of his pants opening. Fuse feels so humiliated that his face gets red. The friends compliment Kindaichi on his technique like a real magician. All of them give Kindaichi an admiring look when they know his grandfather is the famous detective, Kosuke Kindaichi. Holding tightly Kindaichi's arm, Orie, an 11th grader, wheedles him into being his assistant. Miyuki gets upset. She steps on Kindaichi's toes. Yuji Arimori, an 11th grader, teases Kindaichi by getting Kindaichi's name wrong. While they are talking cheerfully together, Harumi, an 11th grader, asks them to be quiet. She has to concentrate on her script. She is so serious that Kindaichi thinks she just plays well all of the mean old women. The resort owner is very happy for the youngsters coming all at once to his unique hotel, which is located on an island. The main building, owned by a wealthy landowner during the Meiji era. Mr. Kurosawa bought it 10 years ago and remodeled it to be a hotel. Counting his staffs, there are only 3 people living on the entire island. They have one ship to shuttle guests and to get supplies. In front of them is an ancient-style hotel. The building must have been here for centuries. Everyone is stunned by having a theater in the hotel. The rich man who used to live here loved plays, therefore, he built it. It's how the Opera House Hotel got its name. Although the equipment sound room is old, it still worked pretty well. It just needs a little bit of cleaning. As the theater will be torn down after the holidays to improve the resort, the students can use the place for free. Mr. Kurosawa is lost in thought of what happened in the theater. When Kindaichi asks curiously for detail, the hotel owner is startled to realize that word escaped his lips, so he invents a story about rats to cover his tracks. Kindaichi stares out the window in silence. It is raining outside. Orie screams in fear because of seeing the Phantom of the Opera. Miss Ogata stops them. She seriously requires Orie to look more scared. Miyuki instructs Kindaichi to turn up the sound to tenfold when Orie screams. Sendo, an 11th grader, art department asks Kindaichi to teach him the magic tricks. Orimori gets angry, for he is very busy with organizing the props, whereas Sendo is free. An incisive knife falls down to the floor that scares Kindaichi, but it is a fake knife looks so lifelike. Orimori is a member of the school's art club. He is good at making real-looking props. Due to thinking a fake crossbow, Kindaichi is playing with it. An arrow is unexpectedly off from the crossbow, glances off Fuse's face and embeds itself in the wall. In his anger, Fuse dashes the mask to the floor. Kindaichi picks it up, covers his face, then puts his tongue out at Fuse. Miyuki can't stand Kindaichi's bad joke anymore. She knocks him on the head. Orimori wrests the mask from Kindaichi on account of its importance. Since Kindaichi hasn't read the script, he doesn't know that. Miss Ogata explains that the Phantom always covers his deformed with the mask. In the story, he has a great musical talent. He lives underneath the opera house to hide the world. But then, he falls in love with a novice singer. In consequences, he commits several murders. The teacher strictly reminds Fuse not to lose his temper and end up breaking their props. While praising highly for Miss Ogata's charm, Kindaichi is also astonished at Harumi's beauty, a finicky girl on the train. With regard to a biggest star, Sendo blurts out Fuyuko. On stage, Ryoko, a 12th grader, loses her self-control. She gives Orie a shove. She criticizes Orie for her incompetence that will make her look bad at the drama competition where there is going to be a talent scout. Then she sweeps out of the stage with her head high in the air. No matter how bad Ryoko's behavior is, the teacher can't not take her out of the part. There is only about 2 weeks until the contest. The name Fuyuko is mentioned by an 11th grader, Shuichiro. None of them say nothing. They feel a sense of tension in the air. Shuichiro left in a hurry. Ryoko scarcely became the heroine after the death of Fuyuko. All of a sudden, Orie looks all pale. She wants to talk something, but she remains silent. Her eyes are wide as if she sees something horrible. Realizing everyone in the club avoids saying the name Fuyuko, Kindaichi asks Orimori about her death. As far as Orimori knows, Fuyuko was a sweet, perfect girl. 1 month ago, she accidentally poured sulfuric acid on herself. It hit her head. In consequence, her face was so burnt that surgery didn't help. The night she passed away, they all went to see her at the hospital. She appeared on the roof, removed the bandage from her face and spoke the words of the play.
I am the Phantom of the Opera. I am the ugliest creature on the earth, and even while the fires of hell burn this ugly creature, I'll still dream of a place in heaven.
Right after the last words, she jumped off the roof. Until now, Orimori can't get her image and sound out of his head. Despite Miyuki's absence that night, she can know how much her friends have suffered. She comes to console Shuichiro. He is ashamed to apologize. As soon as Miyuki leaves from his room, Shuichiro takes the photograph of Fuyuko out of a book. He looks quietly at her photo. His eyes are getting moist. His heart is bleeding. He has been carrying a torch for Fuyuko desperately. It's still raining heavily outside. In the cafeteria, Kindaichi doesn't know the seats are assigned for everyone. He thoughtlessly takes a seat. A strange man shouts at Kindaichi for his neglect. During the meal, Kindaichi and Orimori shudder lightly at the man's silverware. He is eating with a scalpel. Without seeing Orie, Miyuki remembers her previous strange action and the terrible incident happened a month ago. They decide to look for her. There is an immediate panic when they hear a sudden scream of Orie. They spread out and search her the whole hotel. The bell for ending intermission from the theater is ringing noisily. When Kindaichi and Miyuki enter the theater, the bell stops. They stiffen at the horrific sight. The stage lighting rig weighs a couple hundred pounds, now is lying against Orie's skinny body. It crushes her. Miyuki faints at the sight of blood. When she is awake, a doctor, one of the guests in the hotel, apprises them of Orie's bad situation. Orie died instantly because her spine was crushed among other things. Broken ribs punctured many of her vital organs, as well. Interestingly, the man yelled at Kindaichi in the cafeteria as a homicide detective, Kenmochi. He says Orie's death is just an accident, as a result of the old, worn wire, yet Kindaichi asserts that it was a murder. The end of the wire that was holding the stage lights was cut with a knife on purpose. Mr. Kenmochi feels his face burning with embarrassment. He orders everyone to go back to the cafeteria for an investigation. The police isn't coming until the weather improves, therefore, everyone must obey the detective, Mr. Kenmochi. The guests of the hotel include 8 students from Fudo High School, a doctor, a teacher, Miss Ogata, and a detective, Kenmochi. Miss Ogata reminds the detective that they were all in the cafeteria when they heard Orie Hidaka's scream. They couldn't kill her. Mr. Kurosawa, the hotel owner, suddenly remembers there is one more guest. It is Mr. Kagetsu. He checked in yesterday and left specific instructions not to be bothered. His face was completely wrapped in bandages. It is like Fuyuko before she committed suicide. Running quickly to his room, everything's been slashed, he got away. Kindaichi claims that he wasn't injured, using the bandages just hid his face. On the wall of the bathroom, there are the last words of Fuyuko Tsukishima from the play before killing herself.
Burn in the fire of hell.
Fuse is mortally frightened. However violent the storm is, he definitely has to leave from the island. That's awful. Someone cut the line keeping the boat. After calming Fuse, Kindaichi points out that all of them are stuck with the murderer until the storm is gone. The thunder sounds like evil laughter coming from their very own phantom. Kindaichi, Miyuki and Harumi are on the way to their rooms. Harumi says Kagetsu with the bandages around his face is like Fuyuko's ghost who is back for her revenge. Harumi admits Fuyuko Tsukishima had a talent that normal people could never have. They stop at Harumi's room. Before totally closing the door, she asks Kindaichi and Miyuki if the murderer who killed Orie is a little obsessed with Fuyuko. The radio is carrying the storm, its power remains steady. Kindaichi is tossing about in his bed. In view of Harumi's words, Orie's panicky feeling, the reference to the play in Kagetsu's room, the last words of Fuyuko before her death, and Kagetsu with the bandages, Kindaichi gets that sinking feeling. A dead silence falls upon the hotel. A man in a black suit opens Miyuki's room lightly and calls her name. He says his name is Kagetsu, the Phantom of the Opera. He lunges to choke her throat violently and tells the list of his victims. The first one is crushed underneath the stage lighting rig, and the second one. The voice sounds familiar to Miyuki. After putting his mask off, she wakes up with a start. Despite seeing a face with mask out of the window, she just thinks it is also a dream. Receiving a call from Arimori, Kindaichi hurries out of the hotel. The second victim's body with a thin wire is slowly swinging, creaking from a tree as though it sways in the wind. There is nothing for Harumi Kiryu to stand on. She was clearly murdered and hanged on the tree. Kindaichi thinks it is a classic locked room mystery. Since the key is still in the room and the chain lock remains locked, the window is wide open. In order to get in her room, the murderer would have needed to pass through the mud and then walk to the tree. Nevertheless, there is only one set of footprints from Harumi's window. Moreover, her shoes match the footprints. Judging by the amount of mud on her shoes, the footprints must be Harumi's. Miyuki thinks Harumi was hypnotized to go out from the window by herself. Every speculation over her death has reached a dead end. In the pelting rain, Kindaichi sees Ryoko hiding behind a tree in the distance. She is quaking with fear. Kindaichi, Arimori and Sendo are walking along the corridor. Sendo asks in a troubled voice whether they will be all killed. Shuichiro hastens to take them to the stage. All of their props are ruined, but the Phantom's mask, Fuse's costume and the crossbow are gone. Until now, Miyuki realizes that the man who was wearing a mask outside her window wasn't not a dream. The detective, Mr. Kenmochi, can't understand the purpose of a sick psycho, Kagetsu. A man wearing a mask reminds Miyuki of murders in the play. The first victim was killed with the stage lighting equipment, the second was hanged. The play is The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. This story takes place at the Paris Opera House. Underneath the Opera House, there were catacombs that nobody knew about. A musical genius lived there. The man had been hiding his deformed face from the world with a mask. One day, he fell in love with a novice singer who dreamed of becoming an opera star. For the purpose of helping the girl of his dreams to replace the main singer, the Phantom cut the chandelier in the main singer's performance to deprive the life of an actress that made the singer look like she was cursed, so she'd never be allowed back on stage. A man who knew the Phantom's identity was choked to death. The Phantom abducted his love, who was frightened by his ugly face, and then killed the man chasing after him by drowning him in the underground waterway. The detective shouts that it is ridiculous. It is all just coincidence. Regardless of everyone's expectations, Kindaichi indifferently runs to toilet. In fact, he wants to be quiet. The teacher, Miss Ogata, talks to Miyuki that only Kindaichi can solve the complicated mystery. Even though he was barely able to pass the 10th grade, he was accepted to the school with the highest scores on the entrance exam in the school's history. Moreover, he scored a 180 on his IQ test. It's the score of a genius, whereas the average IQ is a little above 100. He has something passed down from his grandfather, Detective Kosuke Kindaichi. Kindaichi, Arimori and Miyuki are discussing about the murders. Miyuki can't believe that such a sloppy boy could get the highest score in the school's history and a 180 IQ. Looking at the sketch of the opera house mansion together, Arimori summarizes the murders. First, when they heard Orie's scream, all of them, including the staffs, were in the dining room, except the mysterious Kagetsu. He disappeared after having scratched some words on the wall. The following morning, Harumi was killed right outside her room. The cause of Harumi's death remained some insoluble mysteries. Her room was locked from the inside and her own footprints were in the mud by her window, the only way out from her room. As far as they know, the mansion is a pretty old building. Arimori thinks there might be something like the Phantom's catacombs. Miyuki agrees with him, she read something like that in a book. In the past, when a man held power in the high-born family, had unwanted children, he would either kill them right away or lock them in a secret basement. Furthermore, the hotel was the cottage of a wealthy man from Meiji era. Arimori puts Miyuki in mind of Kagetsu's habitation. He is not in the hotel. In Kindaichi's opinion, none of them has seen Kagetsu except the hotel owner, Mr. Kurosawa. He is keeping something back. The murders were planned thoroughly, and they haven't discovered any clues yet. When Miss Ogata is standing at the window to stare out, Mr. Kurosawa counsels her to be careful, because the murderer hasn't been gotten. The stone mound on the bluff has been bugging her. Mr. Kurosawa says that is the grave of his daughter. She passed away 4 years ago, at the age of 17, burying her there, she could overlook the view. To fence with Miss Ogata's questions, Mr. Kurosawa suggests her to go back to her room. He is busy with patrolling. On her return, she hears a noise from the theater. It is dark inside. She strikes a light. In the feeble light from the cigarette lighter, she circumspectly walks into and asks in a low voice if anyone is there. Everything is still quiet. Abruptly seeing a reel in the sound room, she stoops down to pick it up. She perceives who the murderer must be. Owing to staying focused on the clue, she doesn't know a devil is standing behind her. The cold-blooded murderer is holding something up, directly at the back of her head. While Kindaichi is worried about the Phantom with the following crime, Miyuki calls him to her room because of having a leak in her bathroom. Although he mutters about being her handyman, he quickens his steps. Since he rushes into Miyuki's room without even troubling to knock, she is not ready for wearing her clothes. Water containing blood is leaking from the ceiling. The upstairs room is their teacher's, Miss Ogata. The naked dead body of Miss Ogata is lying prone in the bloodbath. Her hair is floating like seaweed. The back of her head is cracked open. The detective laments for the poor woman. He gets her out of the bathtub. Miyuki cries frighteningly that in the play, the Phantom gets his third victim dragged into the water and drowned. Kindaichi denies that to be the case. Their teacher was beaten to death, not be drowned. The killer is very smart and calm, but he made a mistake this time. The fake nail of her middle finger on her right hand is gone. As Miss Ogata was a music teacher, she could not play the piano with the long nails. Instead of growing her nails, she put on plastic ones. All of them have a bovine expression. Kindaichi shouts that how she could bath without taking out her fake nails. The bathroom is just a setup, for she was killed in a different place. Kindaichi thinks the homicide was an accident because clothes are different from her clothes yesterday. Blood probably got on the clothes, so the killer needed to destroy the evidence. There is a lot of dust on her pantyhose. She might be killed in a place that no many people go to. She might have found an important clue, so the homicide would have been bound to kill her. Grieving at the teacher, Miyuki bursts out crying. The detective Kenmochi orders them to go back their room. Miyuki blames herself for the deaths. She had planned this training camp. Kindaichi persuades her not to be her fault. She clasps him to find back the feeling of being sheltered when she was a little girl. Kindaichi feels embarrassed. Their direct body contact arouses his sexual desire of an adolescent boy. All at once, Ryoko knocks at the door. Her face tenses with anxiety. She hands Kindaichi a letter which was at her door. The content of the letter is the same one which the Phantom sends to the opera manager in the play. The role of Christine must be played by Fuyuko in the night. Otherwise Ryoko will be cursed. Ryoko can't conceal the truth about Fuyuko's accident anymore. Fuyuko was called to the science lab by her, Orie and Harumi. They've heard that talent scouts would be coming to their upcoming theater contest and they were all jealous of Fuyuko for getting the main part. They wanted to scare her a little. They were just going to burn a tiny hole in her clothes by using a little bit of sulfuric acid. It is unexpected that she smashed into the glass cabinet from fear, and was poured by a bottle of sulfuric acid over her face. Ryoko puts her face in her hands and cries repentantly. Kindaichi makes sure the next target of the killer. He asks Miyuki to stay with Ryoko. He reports that to the detective in a hurry. Kindaichi takes the detective Mr. Kenmochi to see Ryoko. The detective has known the motive for the killing. Kagetsu is revenging Fuyuko. Miyuki is trying to set Ryoko's mind at ease. The two girls completely nonplussed by the Phantom's sudden appearance. He breaks the window to get in. He steps at Miyuki and Ryoko with a knife. Their lives hang by a thread. At that very instant, Kindaichi and Mr. Kenmochi open the door. Kagetsu puts Kindaichi down. He throws a bottle of gasoline and a light behind so as to detain Kindaichi and the detective in chasing him. Kindaichi puts out the fire with the vase of flowers next to him. He bumps against Arimori at the corner of the passageway. Hearing the loud noise, Arimori, Sendo and Shuichiro run out to watch. The detective says to them that the Phantom just went this way. They see his footprints head right out the window. Mr. Kenmochi concludes that after the Phantom was cornered, he climbed out the window and failed overboard. Because outside the window, it is the cliff drops sharply away to the sea. The Phantom mask is floating in the sea. He must be died. All of students are very delighted for the death of the killer. Kindaichi passes his finger across the window ledge. He loses in reflection. He doesn't think Kagetsu fell into the ocean. It was another trick. The owner of the hotel, Mr. Kurosawa, heard a lot of noise, so asks anxiously about something has come up. He is surprised to hear of the murderer's death. There is only Kindaichi believes that the killer is still among them.